This is a CBS News special report. I'm Jeff Glow reporting from CBS News headquarters in New York. Good day. It appears President Trump is taking action to end the separation of immigrant families who enter the U.S. illegally. Pressure has been growing on him, as we've been reporting, from Republicans and Democrats to change that policy this week. The president now says he will sign an executive order so that children will no longer be removed from their parents. He spoke just a short time ago. We're waiting for the tape playback of those remarks. The president spoke for a little more than 20 minutes at the White House. He says that this order eventually will be matched by legislation. Let's take a listen to the president.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. I'll be leaving for Minnesota today. We have 2 stops, one a very big one, and it'll be a lot of fun. I know a lot of you are going with us, so that'll be interesting. We're meeting right now on immigration, and we are very strong at the border. We're very strong on security. We want security for our country. The Republicans want security and insist on security for our country, and we will have that. At the same time, we have compassion. We want to keep families together. It's very important. I'll be signing something in a little while that's going to do that, and the people in this room want to do that, and they're working on various pieces of legislation to get it done. But I'll be doing something that's somewhat preemptive, but ultimately will be matched by legislation, I'm sure. We're having a lot of problems with Democrats. They don't want to vote for anything. They don't care about lack of security. They really would like to have open borders where anybody in the world can just flow in, including from the Middle East, from anybody, anywhere. They can just flow into our country. Tremendous problems with that, tremendous crime caused by that. We're just not going to do it. I do want to say that because we're all so busy, and I just mentioned to the congressmen and the senators in the room that we are going to cancel and postpone tomorrow's congressional picnic. We have a congressional picnic tomorrow, and I was just walking over to the Oval Office and I said, you know, it doesn't feel right to have a picnic for Congress when we're working on doing something very important. We have many things that are important. We're talking about trade, we're talking about many, many things, but it didn't feel exactly right to me. So we will be officially postponing the congressional picnic for tomorrow. We'll make it another time when things are going extremely well. And they are going for the country extremely well. We have record-setting numbers in every way economically, but we want to solve this immigration problem, which is going on for 40 years, more. It's been going on forever. And we want to see if we can solve it, so we are canceling or postponing the congressional picnic tomorrow. Would anybody in the room have any question or statement that you'd like to make while the press is here? Anybody? Anybody?
I'll say one, Mr. President.
Yes.
You know, on the issue of immigration, trade, and investment, these are all areas where Congress has a lot of authority under the Constitution, and you have authority. The executive branch has authority under the Constitution. I think that's why meetings like this are really important, bringing the leadership on both sides together because they're important issues. So appreciate the opportunity to let you see our views, hear our views on these issues where we share authority on important matters. Thank you.
Well, we all very much have the same views. We want to keep family together. At the same time, we have to be strong on the border. Otherwise, you'll have millions of people coming up, not thousands like we have now. You'll have millions of people flowing up and just overtaking the country. We're not letting that happen. So we have to be very strong on the border, but at the same time, we want to be very compassionate. Yes, Lamar?
Mr. President, thanks for having us. I think what Dan said was good. We really have, on the issues on trade, on immigration, we have a partnership under the Constitution. We have some authority. The President has some authority. We need to work together. I was thinking this morning when we look at President Nixon's portrait in the White House, we think that he did the unexpected and he went to China because he could do that. He was in a position to do it. And President Reagan did the unexpected. He went to the Berlin Wall in Moscow. And when we were here a year ago, I think I suggested to you that immigration, which has bedeviled us for 40 years, as you've said, I believe you're the president who can help us solve the immigration problem with your leadership. You may be able to do for immigration what Nixon did for China and Reagan did for the Soviet Union. And a lot of us would like to work with you on that.
Thank you, Lamar, very much. We need the Democrats' support. because we need their votes. It's very simple. You know, people say we have a majority. Well, we have a one majority in the Senate. We need 60. Unfortunately, we don't go with the majority. We go with 60. Someday somebody will explain why, but that's the way it is. We need 60 votes. We have 51 votes at the most. So we need Democrat votes in order to do it. Otherwise, you can't do it. Tom, you were going to say something? Tom,
well, I think it's very important that we protect our border. We cannot allow a child to be a get-out-of-jail-free card and a get-into-the-U.S. free ticket. But at the same time, as you said, as we've all said, we'd like to keep families together, keep them together at the border for the orderly and timely processing of the adult's immigration claim. If it's a lawful, legitimate claim, we can admit the family into the country. If not, they'll have to go back to their home country. I'm glad you're looking for a solution for that. I know that we in Congress are working on legislation that will allow our hardworking Border Patrol agents to keep families together at the border while we process their claims in a timely fashion.
You're right. And you bring up something that I have to say. Our Border Patrol agents and our ICE agents have done one great job. ICE is we're throwing by the thousands MS-13. They come into the country. We're liberating towns on Long Island and other places. We're throwing them out by the thousands, but we need laws that don't allow them to come back in. Mac, you've been very involved in this issue. Do you have anything to say?
Well, Mr. President, there are a number of issues that we're going to be able to discuss today that touch on our country's national security. And certainly controlling who and what comes across our border is an element of national security, as we do the compassionate thing with families. And I look forward to working with you to further strengthen our military. Together, we have turned around a declining situation, but that's also part of what we need to do together. Back to Lamar's point about we both have responsibilities, we can do more together.
I will say, with all of the numbers that you see, if we weren't strong on the border, you'd have hundreds of thousands of people pouring through the border. They'd just be pouring through, and the country would not be the country anymore. Lindsay?
We've got a big, massive mess that's been going on for decades, and we're all going to fix it one day, I hope. But we've got a specific problem that puts the country in a dilemma. Here's your dilemma, it's President Obama's dilemma, our dilemma. If a family shows up at the border and we let the family go into the country and say, please come back for your hearing, about 80% of the time, the adults never show up for the hearing. I think most Americans feel like that is bad. It will create a third wave of illegal immigration. I want to be fair to the people who came here under the old system, but I don't want to create incentives to create a third wave. The other choice is if you detain the parents who broke the law under the Flores decision, you have to break the family up. So there's a 1997 Supreme Court case that we've got to deal with. So I would urge my Democratic friends to see if we can find a way to keep families together, have a legislative fix to the Flores decision, and argue about the other things later. Because right now, Mr. President, you're in a real bind. If you detain the adults, the law requires the children to be separated. If you let the adults into the country, they never show up. Seems to me that we want to keep the family together and have the parents show up for their day in court. To Senator Schumer, I know there's a lot we don't agree on, but surely to goodness we can fix this court decision because the country's in a bad spot, not just you.
Well, Lindsay, the dilemma is that if you're weak, which some people would like you to be, if you're really, really pathetically weak, the country's going to be overrun with millions of people. And if you're strong, then you don't have any heart. That's a tough dilemma. Perhaps I'd rather be strong, but that's a tough dilemma. Yes, go ahead, Ron.
All right, you've been listening to the president who just announced that he will be signing something, he says, very soon that will end the family separations that have been taking place at the southern border. We have learned that this will not reverse criminal prosecutions, but it will allow families to stay together while that process plays out. The president also mentioned he's canceling a congressional picnic that was supposed to take place tomorrow, so Congress can work on this, presumably, and other issues. Major Garrett is on the North Lawn right now at the White House. So, Major, here's what's interesting. So the president says this is preemptive, and he believes this will be matched eventually. That's the big question, right?
It is, and it is important to note that on an issue in which the president has been entrenched and resolute, immigration and tough border security, for the first time in his presidency, he is engaging in a bit of a public reversal. Why do I say that? Because this policy, this zero-tolerance policy prosecuting everyone interdicted at the U.S. border with Mexico, means, and the administration knew that it meant in early April when it announced that policy, that by definition, according to the law, families would have to be separated. This administration had not been exercising a zero-tolerance policy before April of this year. It decided to do that, knowing full well the underlying law requiring family separation. That's now become a political crisis for Republicans and for this administration. And in the heat of that crisis, the president has now said he will take executive action to reverse an executive decision. That's what's important about this. Then he will ask Congress to deal with the matter by writing a piece of legislation. What we don't know, Jeff, is will the president sign a piece of legislation that only deals with the issue of family separation and not, for example, fund a border wall or deal with other immigration priorities this administration has identified. But for the very first time, after taking an aggressive stance on border control, the president has now publicly reversed himself.
Yeah, you make a great point, Major. We do have to wait for a lot of details on this, and I know the reporting is still flowing in here, Major, but as far as we know at this point, the understanding is that the order here is being led and drafted by the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, and not the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kirstjen Nielsen.
Yes, but I have spent enough time at this White House, Jeff, to tell you that we have to wait to see what the final resolution is. Plenty of things work through this administration and then are rapidly reversed or redirected or changed. This is a white-hot political situation. There are lots of voices, and the president has been somewhat vague about ultimately what he's going to do. It could be simply guidance. It could be an executive order. And if it is an executive order, it will be the administration saying we have to confront a law that we're forced to enforce. Well, not exactly. Previous administrations operated under that same law, did not enforce it the same way. This administration decided to enforce it to its absolute hilt. Absolute hilt, which it is clearly under the law entitled to do. But when you enforce it to the hilt, you create optics of the kind we have seen play out on the border the last couple of days. And it's in the context of that optics, the president didn't want a bunch of lawmakers picnicking on the backyard while families were being separated on the border.
All right. Yeah, so as we mentioned off the top here, that's the cancellation of this congressional picnic that was supposed to take place tomorrow. Okay, Major Garrett, thank you very much. We will see you more this afternoon and then later tonight. To reiterate and to be clear, the president has just said he will be signing, quote, something in the near future here to keep families together following the outcry over the implementation of this policy on the southern border, which has led to the separation of about 2,000 kids from parents in the last few weeks here. Now, we just saw the president meeting with lawmakers at the White House and then addressing this. We're going to have much more about all of this on your local news on this CBS station, on our 24-hour streaming news service, CBSN, and right here tonight on the CBS Evening News. Until then, I'm Jeff Glor, CBS News in New York.
For news 24 hours a day, go to CBSNews.com.